In this sponsored tutorial, I'm going to show you one plugin that can back up your site on schedules, that can restore your site with one click, that can create incremental backups for your site, that can migrate your site automatically to a different domain, and that can also create staging sites for any website you install it on. This plugin is called WP Vivid. I'm going to show you how all that works in this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave them down below this video. I try to answer them the best I can. My name is Bjorn Allpass from WPLearningLab, where we help you get better at WordPress so you can earn more for yourself, for your clients, and for your business. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And we're getting started on this tutorial right now. And so this is the site we're working on right here. Let's say, for example, this is a site built locally, and we're going to migrate it to our live server. So this is a local site. We are going to install WP Vivid here. We're going to install WP Vivid on our fresh installed site over here as well on a different domain. And then we're going to migrate the site over. But first, let's do a backup. Actually, first, let's install the plugin, then do a backup. Let's go into the dashboard. Let's go to plugins and add new. And I'm going to upload the WP Vivid plugin, the pro version, from my hard drive. You get this file once you purchase it. You can download it right from their website. I'll show you how to do that at the end of the video. Activate the plugin. Now I have a call to action up here saying the free version must be installed as well. Click here to install it. This is the one we're going to install right here, but before we do, WP Vivid has an add-on for main WP, which is this plugin right here. This allows you to back up any number of websites that you have connected to your main WP dashboard and easily share settings and set up Vivid WP on any new website that you want to. I use main WP for my website management. I've linked to a tutorial in the card up above where I show you how to create a main WP website where you can add this main WP Vivid backup add-on and then use this plugin for your backups on all the sites inside main WP that are under your management, which, by the way, is a service customers will pay you for, and you can use main WP to manage all of it really easily. I'm going to click on install now right here. Now we have to enter our username and email address. This is what we use to purchase the plugin through their website. Click on activate. In a few moments, it'll fill in some data on the right over here. There we go. We are active. We have the freelancer version, ready to rock and roll. This plugin does three things very well. I touched on two of them earlier, and that is backing up and migrating, but it also creates staging sites, which is a pro feature, and it's fantastic. We're going to check out all of those, but first let's back up the site. Let's go to backup migration. Takes us right to the backup and migration page. We can see here there were no backups found because we haven't done one yet. We just installed this plugin moments ago. Then we scroll down to here and we choose where we want or what we want to do first. Under option 1, we can choose to back up manually and save it to localhost, which is what we're going to do. We're going to go through option 2 and option 3 later on. I'm going to back up just the database so it's nice and quick. And you can add a comment here. For example, maybe you're backing up before you update your plugins, so before you change settings on something. So you can add a comment here if you want. If you do not want to, that's totally fine. Click on backup now when you're ready. And the backup is done already. It's succeeded. Fantastic. I did not fast forward, nothing. If I go to the backups tab over here, we see our backup right down here. There's a bunch of information here, which is important to know. We have a lock. If we click on that lock, once it's locked, this can only be deleted manually. Under the scheduled settings, you can delete old backups, but then you can lock them so they can't be deleted by the schedule. They can only be deleted manually. And under the log, we of course have the log of what happened. This is not very interesting unless something goes wrong. You'd only ever go in here if WP Vivid support asked you to, or if you knew what you're doing to troubleshoot a problem. Let's go back to backups and restore. The storage option we chose was local. This is the icon for local, database only. This is the website that we backed up. We can download the backup and we can restore it. So if I were to, for example, let's go to our pages and let's just delete both of these pages. Move to trash, go to the trash, empty the trash. Now they're totally gone. If I go to the home page, we see we're back to intro to donkey tricks, and that's it. That nice home page that we had earlier is gone. So if I go back into WP Vivid, go to backup migration, backups and restore, we can get those back. We can get that home page back really easily in all those pages by just clicking on restore right here. Click on restore again, and click OK. And bada bing, bada boom. In a few moments, restore completed successfully. And now if I go back to the home page and refresh, and we have our home page back in all its glory. So that's how easy it is to make a backup and restore. I just backed up the database because it's faster, but if you're doing a backup, you're going to want to back up most of the time, pretty much all the time, the database and the files, because when something goes wrong, you don't know what it's going to be because it hasn't happened yet. So you want to make sure you have an all-encompassing backup that backs up everything, and that's the database and files option. The file sizes will of course be bigger, but there's some stuff we can do to help with that. I'll show you in a little bit, because big file sizes sometimes aren't allowed on certain servers, certain hosting accounts, and they also take up a lot of space. Speaking of remote storage, let's check that out. Check this box or click this radio button. It says here we have to configure our remote storage. Click on OK. Takes us to our remote storage. We see all the usual suspects here: Google Drive, pCloud, Dropbox, Microsoft One, Amazon, DigitalOcean, FTP, SFTP for some custom work, and Wasabi. Now we just have to give this a name. This is for our reference. This is going to tell us which backup service we're using. I'm just going to call this one G Drive. And here it shows the folder that's going to be used inside of G Drive or Google Drive. And this is a pro feature. If you're using the free version, you do not get to edit this option or even have this option. It just goes right into the root of your Google Drive folder. Whereas when you have the pro version, it's separated into its own folder, and then all your backups are contained in that folder. And then inside of that folder, we can then specify the folder name for this specific site. So I'm just going to delete the .com here and just call it completed site build. And that's the folder the backups are going to go into. And I'm going to set this as the default remote storage. Click on Authenticate with Google. And then we have to authenticate, go through a bunch of sign in or not. Click allow a bunch of times, and we're back to here. We now have our remote storage enabled. If I were now to back up the whole database and all the files, let's just do that now, send to remote storage. It chooses our default one. If we go here, in case you're not sure which is your default one, you have it right here. If you have multiple, you'll be able to choose which one you want it to back up to. I'm going to click on backup now. And that's going to take a little bit longer because this is the site files and the database. So I'm going to fast forward as this backup runs. And there we go, it's all done. Took a little longer than I expected because it was fairly large. Under Backups and Restore, we go to a Remote Storage tab, and we see our storage on the remote storage, Google Drive right here. And if you're watching the fast forward, you may have seen that this process has two steps. First, the backup is created locally on your server, on your hosting account. Then it's uploaded to your remote storage. And then I guess there's three steps because then it goes back and deletes the backup it made locally. And so if your local storage on your hosting account doesn't have enough space for whatever reason, it won't work, it'll fail. So that's a common problem that people see when they're trying to back up to remote storage, and they think it's a problem with the remote storage, but usually it's not. It's a problem with your hosting account because you don't have enough space. So if we go back to backup and migration, I think we've covered those two pretty solidly. And before we restore this backup to a new site as it migrates to a new site, let's check out the scheduling tab. Because you don't want to back up your site manually every time. Once you have it set up, either remote or locally, you want to back up on a schedule. On the scheduling tab, we have two more tabs, schedules and incremental backups. These are mutually exclusive, meaning you can only run one or the other. And incremental backups is a pro feature. It's currently in beta. If you want to use it, you click on disable other schedules and run incremental backup. I'll get into what that is after I show you the regular schedule, because most people will probably go for the regular schedule until this is out of beta. So the schedule we can set it right here. We can have it go every hour, 2 hours, daily, weekly, every 2 weeks, every 30 days. And the schedule you choose will depend on how much content or how regularly you add content to your site. Because the reason you have backups in the first place is to get your site back if it goes down, if it's hacked, if your server melts, or whatever the case may be. You want to be able to get your site back to the version it was most recently before the emergency happened or the disaster happened. So if you are only uploading stuff to your site every 30 days, but you're backing up every hour, that's going to be a major waste of space. because you're just going to be backing up identical versions of the site every hour. But if you do update every single hour, then you do want to have hourly backups. Or if you have backup every day or every week, you pick the one that is most closely to the schedule of your new content on the site. You can pick which day of the week and which time of day using these options here. And I'm just going to keep it as it is right here. We can choose a type of backup. Usually you want the full backup, like I said earlier, because when something goes wrong, you don't know what it's going to be, and you want to have everything available to you. You can save them locally or to remote storage, like we saw earlier. It's going to choose remote storage, so it saves the server space. If you do remote storage, please do it every time, because the space adds up quick, or the space used adds up quick. Then click on Create New Schedule. And here we have our new schedule. Every Monday at midnight, we back up all the files and database. Under the settings on the left over here, we can set some things relating to the backup schedule. Then click on Settings. Here we see for the backup schedule at the top, how many backups are retained locally, how many backups are retained on each remote storage, how many databases, locally databases on the remote storage. You can change those as you see fit. The larger the number, usually the better. You don't want to go overboard. 30 is quite a few. I only have 7 backups of the entire site retained at any point in time. That's all the files and the database. And I find this enough. This means if I back up daily, I have 7 days of history. So as long as something goes wrong within the last 7 days, I have a backup available I can restore to. But if something went wrong 2 weeks ago, I didn't notice, and the site keeps backing up, if that's functionality still works, and it keeps deleting the old versions, then I have no backup. So keep that in mind as you choose this number. And we check this box here. This means if we have 7 backups set, if we back up more than 7, it's going to remove anything that's more than 7, the oldest one. So if you have 7 backups set, you always only have 7, and the oldest one will be removed. So if you have 7 in your remote storage right now, and you do a backup today, you'll then have 8 for a few moments, and then the 8th one will be deleted, which is the oldest one. You can choose to calculate file sizes before you back up. It's always good to know what these are, just in case you're reaching a limit that you know from experience that your host has or that your remote storage has. It's good to know what those limits are. You can display the tab pages. Most of these options are pretty self-explanatory, and usually you keep them as they are. This option merges all the files into one for each backup to make the file size smaller, and this one allows you to keep the backups locally after it's uploaded to remote storage. Remember I said there were 3 steps that happen. You create the backup locally, you upload it to remote, and then it's deleted locally. This stops that 3rd step, so the backups stay locally. I usually would not have that checked. This is a great option to have right here. If you've watched any number of my videos, or especially videos where we install a plugin on a live site, I always say back up your site first. Just in case something goes wrong, it's great to have a backup. WP Vivid, the Pro version, will back up automatically before or as you click the update button on a plugin. First it's going to make a backup and then update it. And if something goes wrong, you can restore. Now you can choose where that backup is saved to when that backup is created. We can choose our backup folders. So we saw this under the remote storage tab as we set the remote storage. We weren't able to change the folder name there, but we can change it here if we want. I'm just going to keep mine as default because you'll see when we move this to a new site, it's handy to have the exact same name. Makes it easier to find the backups. We can have a report email to ourselves or to a client. We have to have the WordPress SMTP plugin installed. That's a plugin that allows you to send right from your WordPress website. So you can set that up. You can remove out-of-date backups right here. This action is irreversible, so take care when you do it. Here you can manage your disk space right here. And here you can export settings, all the time it's taken to set up these settings on the site. We can export them and then import them to a new site. WP Vivid has a main WP add-on, and that will help you with this import and export with just one click into any number of sites that you want. You can literally add WP Vivid to 1,000 websites at once and have all the settings set at once with main WP. Not many people have that many websites, but this is an example of what you can do. Then click on Save Changes at the bottom when you're all done on the settings. We're going to come back to these other ones later. First, let's go back to where we were before we got sidetracked by the settings. Go back to Schedule. So that's how we have schedules, and that's how we can, in the settings, define how many backups we keep for our schedules. The incremental backup is a great way to save space. What it does is the first backup will be a complete backup of everything, your files and your database. And if you have a big website, that might be a big file. And that big backup file will be saved every single time you do a regular scheduled backup. With the incremental backups, the first big main backup is made, then every subsequent backup is just of things that are new, just of things that have been changed. And so understandably, it makes the file sizes a whole lot smaller, which means you're using way less storage. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button, even though it's in beta. I'm going to click on it and see what happens. Nothing happened yet. Nothing broke anyway. Something happened, but nothing broke. So we have our full backup cycle. I say you should only does one, but it does full ones apparently on a schedule that you set. You have it go weekly, every 2 weeks, every 30 days. Start time, incremental backup cycle. This is the one that does just the updates. This is the full backup. How many times do you want that done? And then incremental backup, how many times do you want that done? And again, you want to do this just when changes are made, because if nothing's being changed on your site, why make a backup? So if you change or if you upload every single day, I would make this daily. And every day, incremental backup would just back up the changes that you made and keep your file sizes for your backups a whole lot smaller. Here you can choose to run a full backup immediately after we set up the schedule right here. So as soon as we click create schedule, it's going to make a full backup. The database does not have an incremental backup option because when you upload a blog post or add a blog post, any number of things can change in the database. And backing up just a small portion of it is not feasible. So you back up the whole thing. And databases usually are not that big, unless it's a really big site. It has to be a huge site to have a substantially sized database. So the backup cycle you choose separately, and you also want to have this at the same rate that you're making changes. So if you have the file backup daily, I'd make the backup or the database backup daily as well. Then you set the time here. You can probably do this at the same time because it's just incremental backups. So the time spent on backing up is pretty small because they're small file sizes. So I'd choose daily. You can choose the same time or not. It's up to you. You can save them locally or to remote storage. And here we can choose how many to retain on the remote storage. And 30 is probably a good number. Incremental backups are way smaller. So file size is not as big of a consideration as it would be if you're doing full backups. I'm going to click on create new incremental schedule. And now we have our incremental schedule live. There's no backup right now because this is different than the scheduled or the regular full backup we made earlier. And like it said in the warning before we activate this incremental backup, this is in beta. If you're going to use it on a public facing production website, be very careful. You may not want to, but you have the option to. And now we're going to go ahead and migrate our site to our new site, which is this one right here. Currently it's just a fresh install, nothing happening, 2020 theme. This is the site we have right now. They're going to migrate to the new one. And inside this website, we want to install WP Vivid. So I'm going to go into the dashboard and quickly install it. It's the same process you saw earlier, so I'm just going to skip over it. But we want to install WP Vivid on the destination site. Now we have WP Vivid installed on the destination site. Let's go back to the site that we're going to migrate to that destination site and click on Backup and Migration. And now we're going to choose, instead of option 1, which we did use for the backups, we're going to choose option 3. And first we're going to choose Auto Migration because that is a pretty cool feature. This text area input field shows up. This is where we have to paste our key. The key is generated on the destination site. So if we go back to our destination site, we go to Backup Migration, go to Key, click on Generate, select all of it, copy it, come back out here, paste it into this text area, then click on Save. There's a bunch of notes down here. You can read through those, but basically what's going to happen is click on Save. A backup's going to be made of the site that we're migrating. It's going to be sent over to the site we're migrating to, and then we can restore. Let's click on Save to save the key. Here it says we have this many hours, so this much time left before it expires. What do we want to send over? Database and files because we want to migrate the whole thing. And then click on Migrate. It's going to take a few minutes to create the backup and send it over, so I'm just going to pause this video as that happens, and then I will come back when we're ready to rock and roll. And just to show you that I'm not pulling the wool over your eyes, let's go into the destination folder, go to Backups and Restore, and you can see we have no backups down here. Under Remote Storage, we also have no backups. Remote storage is not even connected right now. So there are no backups on this site at the moment. I will pause the video. I'll be back when this process over here is complete. Now the file transfer is complete. If we go to the destination website and we refresh, we should be able to see a backup under backups and restore. Here's a backup right here. It says received backup, which implies that it was sent, which it was. So if you have a received backup, it means it was sent here. And then what we do, let's go to the front of the site just to show you what we have again. We have just a 2020 basic theme. Click on restore. Keep everything checked because we want the whole website restored. Click on restore again, click on OK, and now it's going to restore the site to here. It's going to let that run. I'm going to get a notification when it's all done. Here's the notification, restore completed successfully. Click on OK. We have to log in now. These are the login credentials from the site we migrated over. In my case, they're both the same for these two sites, but yours may be different. Now we're logged back in. And now on the front end of this website, if I refresh, we should have something that looks like this. So let's try that. Let's refresh, and there we have it. Our site has been migrated, and it's that easy. So that's the auto migrate feature, which is fantastic when it works, but it doesn't always work, especially if your site is bigger, because if you're sending multi-gigabyte files in that way, the internet is very fickle sometimes, especially if you're on a Wi-Fi connection. And it could happen that the transfer is interrupted and therefore it fails. A safer way of doing it is the sending to remote storage, and then once you send to remote storage, you can then collect it from remote storage on the other website. So if we do that option, we choose send remote storage, choose all files and database, click on migrate. Now it's going to put it into a remote storage folder, and then into, or on our website here, we'll collect it under remote storage, and we'll go through the setup process here really quick when the file has been transferred. So I'm going to pause the video again, wait till this is transferred to remote storage, then we're going to see how the rest of the process works on the destination site. So the one backup task has been completed, and we can see in the log everything we've done quite a bit so far. The log is basically a history of what you've done with timestamps. And on this website, over here, the destination website, if we go to remote storage and we connect our remote storage, we should be able to scan our remote storage for that backup. So let's create our remote storage here again, call this G drive. This folder name is the same as the folder name that we used earlier, that we created earlier. And that's the reason I said I like to keep it at default, because then every site will have the same one, and we'll be scanning in that same folder for the backup that we can restore. Give this website this folder name and set that as the default remote storage. So that's good. Authenticate. And let's authenticate this and allow. Now our remote storage is connected. Now if we go to backups and restore, remote storage, here we are in this folder right here. Now if I switch to migration and then scan the folder, let's see what comes up. This just came up from this website. Type migrate. So this is one we just created. Timestamp is 7:56, and the timestamp in our log here is 7:56:30. So that is the one we just created most recently. That is the migration file. Now all we have to do is again click on restore, and that will restore the website to this website, to the destination site, and our migration is complete. So that's how we use the migration option with remote storage. Now, so far in this video, we've covered backups, which is the option 1 right here. This includes things like scheduling backups, doing manual backups, backups to remote storage, backups to local host, incremental backups, and we've done option 3, which is migrating a site using both auto migrate and the remote storage option. And you also have a third option that's not listed here, and that is you can go into any backup and click download, and then go to localhost and choose uploading. Upload the file. You can drag and drop it into here. Click on select files to upload it. Then you upload the backup, and then you can restore from that. So that's not an option that's listed there, but it's an option you can use. And what we haven't done yet is create a staging site. So far, the process that we've gone through is kind of a development process. We had a website on a, let's call it a dummy domain or a local domain. where we develop the website, which is this one here. And then we have our live production domain, where we migrate the site to once it's complete, which is this one here. Once we have completed that migration, let's say at some point down the road the client wants to make changes or wants to do functionality, you can either do that on your local site or you can use a staging site. To do it locally, you'd have to then migrate from the current version of the client site back to a different domain or to your local computer and then work there, which can be a bit of a pain because you have to make sure it's all synced up. But if you use a staging site or a dev environment, it's so much easier. And what that is basically on the same domain, when I click this button, it's going to create an alternate version of the website that's hidden from everybody. You can make changes there. Any changes you make, you can click a button and those are brought back into the main live website. So I'm going to click here so we can see how this works. I'm going to click here, create a staging site. I'm going to keep all the recommended options that we have here and click on create staging. And it says here, please do not refresh the page while staging site is being created. So do not close this page, do not refresh it, just leave it as it is until you get a notification that it's complete. So I'm just going to pause this video and come back when it's done. It just took a few minutes and the site's complete, and here's our staging site information. Now to access it, we click on, well, to view it, we click on this URL here, and to access the admin, we click on this URL here. Click on the first one to see how the site looks. It should look the exact same as the regular one. Just sign in first. So let's sign in. This is a security precaution because in case this URL gets out to the public for whatever reason or into a search engine, they won't be able to see a duplicate of your website. So it's not really security. I'm not going to do a whole lot if they do see it, but they just make you sign in to view it. That's all. So this is the staging site. This is the domains in the subfolder. And if we go back to our original website, which is right here, we have the main domain, and they are identical. So what we're going to do is on the staging site, we're going to change something and then migrate it back to the main site with one click. Obviously, you'd probably make more changes if you were doing this for a client, but maybe you wouldn't. You can do this with just one change if you want to. So let's just change this text. Let's just call this your journey in photos. Click on update, and now we're done with our changes. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on copy the staging site to live. This is going to overwrite the live site. So let's go ahead and click on that. Here it says database and folders, or you can also just send custom content over. You can choose what you've changed. This is more for advanced users because most users wouldn't even know what they've changed in here. So it's best to just stick to database and uploads folder and then click on copy now. Now this is going to run through the same process we just saw to create the staging site, just going the other way from the staging site to the live site. I'm going to pause the video again. I'll be back once it's all copied over. The process is complete. Now if we go to the non-staging site version, which is this one, and I refresh, this should now say your instead of my. So let's see what happens. Let's cross our fingers and wait for it. There it is. Your journey in photos. That was just a small change. You can change pretty much everything about a website. You can make a completely new website in your staging site, migrate it over with just one click like we just saw, which is awesome. Usually when I'm doing this for a client, I would now delete the staging site because it served its purpose. I'm going to click on delete, click on OK, and there we go. The staging site is gone. Now we've covered all the major things that WP Vivid does, backups, migration, and staging, but there's some other stuff you should know about it as well. We have the ability to import and export. Here you can import and export images and pages and posts in bulk, which is pretty handy. There's roles and capabilities where you can define who's able to use WP Vivid and who isn't. So if you have this on a client site, the client might be the admin. There are times when I have the client as not being the admin. They are the next lowest or the next highest level, which is the editor. So they can do everything they have to do to upload content and things like that, but they can't really do too much damage as far as wrecking the site as just an editor. So I often do that for clients, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes clients are admins too. Anyway, you can limit the roles of who's able to see the plugin. If you click on browse or edit, you can see what is allowed. The admin automatically gets everything. You can't even uncheck these. And then if you go into a different role, click on edit, you can check which ones are allowed with that role. Click on save changes, and that's what they'll be allowed to do. So that's pretty handy. Under settings, we saw the general tab. There's also the advanced settings. This allows us, if we're on shared hosting, to better use WP Vivid. For example, shared hosting doesn't have as many resources as dedicated hosting does, so backing up might not work as well as it could. You can check this box to enable optimization for web hosting and shared hosting. Keep the database method as it is unless you're a pro. You can create archives without compressing, which means bigger file sizes, or you can compress and archive. And the archive basically means a set of backups. So if I go back to backups over here, remote storage, and I click on, let's see, download, I think it was. Yeah. Here, this file is broken into two parts. This is one backup file, but it's two pieces, part 1 and part 2, because the file size is over 200 megabytes. And if we go back to the settings where we just were, if I can find them, here they are. By default, we have a 200 megabyte file size. So if you had a multi-gigabyte site, for example, you'd have a whole bunch of smaller zip files created, and that would comprise the backup. You don't have to worry about each individual file and managing them. The plugin handles that, but just so you know, that is what's happening. If you see part 1, part 2, part 3, part 5, part 10, this means your site's really big. You don't have to panic if you see that many files. There's a bunch of other settings to help you troubleshoot timing out and PHP errors for the WP Vivid plugin. If you know what you're doing, if you're an advanced user, you know what all these mean. If you don't know what these are, don't worry about them until either your hosting support or WP Vivid support tells you to come in here and do something with these. More or less, just leave them how they are. Let's go with that. Under staging settings, we have some settings as well that are pretty advanced. Don't worry about these unless you're asked to go in here and do something with them. And if you're an advanced user, you know what these all mean, or at least you can get a pretty good idea based on the very good descriptions they have here. And there's also lots of documentation. We have documentation for backup migration, backup and restore, custom migration, and the advanced settings. So if you need documentation, check it out there. If you want to check out WP Vivid, head over to the website, wpvivid.com. There's a link in the description down below. It is an affiliate link, so if you buy through that link, I do get a small commission. It does not make it more expensive for you, but it helps me keep making these videos. And I've also negotiated some discounts for you. So if you go to the pricing page, you can choose any one of these options. First, let's cover the free one, because you can get the free version through the repository that we saw earlier, or you can get it from here. And what's handy about getting it from here is that when you download the free version, you get all the features for 2 weeks, which means everything we just saw. You get all the pro features for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks are over, if you don't sign up, you still have access to the pro features. It doesn't just delete the pro package from your website. You still have access to all the pro features. What you don't get is the updates. You don't get those if you don't sign up for one of these packages, but you get to keep all those features and run them on your site as long as you like. So if you choose any one of these packages for the subscription, let's just choose $99 a year, and the coupon code that you enter to get your discount, it's in the description down below. For the subscriptions, it is WPLearningLab 15. Click on Apply Coupon, and we see 15% removed right here, and that just applies to this current payment. It is not recurring, so every renewal, it does not take off that 15%, but your yearly subscription is actually less than that $99. So it said $99 to sign up, but $39.60 of that is a sign-up fee. Your actual yearly subscription is $59.40. So the prices that you see on the pricing table for the subscription, this is not what you pay every year, this is what you're paying right now. But as it says right here, there's 40% off when you renew. For the lifetime option, pick any one of these. Let's pick the middle one again, $199. This time, let's apply the coupon code WPLearningLab 30. Click on Apply Coupon. And now we have a 30% discount. And this is off the lifetime, so we're only paying this one time plus 30% off. And this applies to all the lifetime options. So in the description down below, it'll say lifetime coupon, which is WPLearningLab 30, and it'll say subscription coupon, which is WPLearningLab 15, and you choose the appropriate one and you claim your discount. And like most services and plugins and themes these days, there's a 100% guaranteed refund for 100% of your money, no questions asked, for 30 days after you purchase. So if you don't like it for whatever reason, just say I don't like it, and they'll send your money back. In the event that the Pro version is not for you right now, just download the free version from their site and then check out the tutorial right over here where I show you all the features and functions the free version has at the time of that recording. And make sure you click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And my name is Bjorn Allpass from WP Learning Lab. Until next time, keep crushing it, and I will see you in the next video.